Ah, there is life here. Hello, guys. I was a bit early for one, so I was just in checking messages mode. You're in a very dark place, Rob, or interesting filter.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
You're either in a very dark place or a very interesting background.
Oh, yeah, I'm giving a presentation and I wanted to show graphics, and the only way I could think of to do that was to put them in a background
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it.
and change them periodically.
That's cool. So waiting for Dene to fully connect. So,
I'm
hi,
here.
Dene.
Hi.
I look forward to hearing about the ELO from you and Andrew, but maybe we wait a minute, see how we fill up a little bit.
Okay.
But how was it in general? Tell me the general.
It was fantastic. I won the big award.
I saw that.
Feeling pretty good about that. Rob, did you nominate me again?
I think I may have.
Cheers,
Probably
Dini.
somebody. Yeah. It meant a lot to me. I mean, Margie was a close friend, as most of you know. And she and I cooked up the awards together as a way to honor people while they were alive. So I'm glad I got one before I died. I was just sad Margie wasn't there to see it. She would have been happy.
That's too bad. I'll miss her.
Yeah, me too. But it was great because it's really the work that the lab's been doing. So it's I see it as a lab award. Andrew, you take part in
Morning.
this. So it's partly yours, dear.
Good morning from brunch. I'll have to drop off at the end of the first hour today for transport. Hope everybody had a good weekend.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did, right?
Yeah, things are a little more hopeful.
Yes, I woke up feeling a lot better this morning.
Yep. I think a lot of people are. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm looking, Peter, at this visualization you sent again. It's really quite nice. I completely agree with Dini. There is some interesting newer typefaces here. Newer in this context, early web and computer ones that could feature. But
Yeah, especially the green screen on the Apple IIe, the little
yeah,
extremely bright green typefaces. Those were kind of fun.
I wonder, Dini, the notion of electronic literature, that is, it keeps kind of recapturing my imagination because it's such a clear way of saying not just any old text digitally. Is there a font maybe that really highlights the transition from early naive digital text to potentials of electronic literature, or is that a bit silly? It's silly. If it wasn't for this friendly community, I wouldn't even ask.
I saw, it's funny, and when I was watching the video that Peter put online, the visualization, which I thought was great, I was thinking of a evolution of fonts, just like there was an evolution of writing, right? Everything from the New York typeface that was really popular for Apple, monotype, the early cursive font called Script. I mean, I think those capture my attention. The early DOS typeface. I mean, I think starting with what we saw with Schneiderman's hyperties. I mean, it's really that, and then the evolution all the way to the true type, as Apple called it, right?
Yeah.
Because then they could make the curves. They couldn't make curves so well before true type.
Yeah, type 1, true type, all of that stuff back in the day. What do we call fonts now? What did it settle on? What is our current?
I don't know.
Isn't it interesting that we don't know? It's quite good, right? In the sense that it seems the problem has been solved. Let's say it has, but let me just say. I'm not sure how many more there will be of us today, by the way. I think, hang on, I'm just looking up this font thing. I think Fabienne is still on holiday, and Mark just obviously sent a message he can't be here.
Yeah, Mark's still working on AMC hypertext. I got a
Yeah.
notice on Thursday or Friday that it's time to start preparing for the presentation. So we can talk about that next week if we want.
Good. Just not that it's important, but open type true type seems to be just checking at one of the fonts here. Hi, Leon. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Right, so I think we'll start with a report of ELO, please. And then we have various things we need to get done today. The most important action item is probably to nail down a couple of themes for the next few weeks so we can share with the community for what we'll talk about on Mondays. Dene and I have been thinking about maybe every other one being a book club / article club, which we've done once. Well, we haven't. I wasn't there. I was in Japan. But that also was done last time when I got stuck in the meeting at the Royal Society. So that could be a great one. But Dene, please.
Well, the conference started on Thursday. It was a 4-day conference, and it's an international it was online, right? So it was on Zoom. And so it was starting at 6:15 in the morning here, and it went on to about 8 o'clock at night. So it was a long day of 1 hour Zooms, couple of people per session per hour. So it was a lot of presentations. I think we had something like 300 participants from all over the world. I met some new folks from Africa, people in South America I've not met before. Some from Asia. Asia still hasn't come on board heavily with electronic literature. That's still a spot, but Egypt, a lot of Middle East. So that was really exciting to meet some new folks, a lot of young people. What I was really interested in is finding a way to dovetail with what we're doing with what other people are doing. And so David Wright is doing a lot of work with XR. And I thought it would be great to bring him on board. Stuart Moulthrop also expressed interest in our project. So I'm going to invite them to, give a paper, present a paper, submit a piece of writing for the book, and see if they would come to the symposium. So I have a list of about 4 or 5 people that I think would be a really great addition to our organization. I'm kind of toying with the idea of hosting ELO next year at the same time as our symposium. And then that way we can bring people in at the same time that we're doing our symposium and have the symposium kind of at the start, like a workshop, like we do at the ACM Hypertext Conference. I need to talk to my administration about it. I need to figure out, the last time I did one on our campus was 2008. And it was very difficult because, as some of you know that have been to Vancouver, there's no hotels around the campus and not any eating. It's not like a community around the campus. It's homes. And so you have to stay in downtown and then take a transportation up. And the time I did this in 2008, I had to rent buses and bus people back and forth. The other alternative is just keep it in downtown and make it easy. One thing that I'm also thinking about is cost. It's very expensive here in Vancouver. It's hard to imagine a town like Vancouver, Washington be expensive, but all the Pacific Northwest is extreme. The West Coast is extremely expensive. Hotels are not cheap here. And so what can I do to kind of mitigate the cost for people? Anyway, I'm toying with that idea. And then that way we could really hook into the organization with the project. Could go back to Sloan and see if they would fund it and give us, some money for offsetting cost. That's a possibility. And not bringing it on my campus would probably save a lot of energy. Our campus has struggled since the pandemic with handling things. I don't know, but across the United States, I don't know what it's like in Europe, is we can't keep staff. I mean, the turnover is just, I sat through early last week interviews for the new HR director. This is the third one we've had in 2 years. So just the turnover of staff has been phenomenal. So if I can not have to bring it to campus, it'd be really great. Anyway, it's a great conference. I won the Marjorie C. Luesebrink Career Achievement Award, which is a really big deal for me. And the other people who've won it in the past is Kate Hales, who's my one of my mentors, Judy Malloy, Stephanie Strickland, John Cayley. So some really good people. So I feel like I'm walking in big shoes. Okay.
Sorry, just doing a thumbs up on Leon there. Yes. Dene, they are walking in your big shoes. Do not underestimate the impact you've had on this society and beyond. It's nice that you're all self-deprecating, but you are an absolute hero. Just wait till you read my acknowledgements in my ACM hypertext human paper. Anyway, no surprise, but still very nice.
Thank you. And Leon, you said, can I do a bit on the future of text? Yeah, God love to hear it, Leon.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that today. Dene, is your presentation available video online? I saw someone else posted.
Oh, there's videos galore. What I'm trying to, there's lots of videos that each of the people who, I guess, nominated me, or they were reached to make comments. There's a video for each of them, but then there's this wonderful compilation that lasted like just 2 minutes, really short. And I don't have access to that. So I'm going to see if I can get access to the short video, because it starts with Mariusz Pozarski, because I gave him a Macintosh last year at the conference, as you may remember. So he starts off walking people into his lab and showing them the little Macintosh that we gave him. And but it's, he, Stuart, Rui Torres from Portugal, who I really like. I'm surprised that he nominated me. I mean, it's a lot of surprises. So Stuart and I go back a long way, and Andrew led the development of his reconstruction of his new Victory Gardens. So, and we have a history together. But it's nice that, I mean, he was always my rock star, Stuart. So, yeah, just a quick little Stuart story. When I was a graduate student in 1991, Nancy Kaplan was hired to run kind of take over the graduate students and teach courses, and and she brought the electronic literature with her. Introduced me to Michael Joyce, Hefner's Story, Judy Malloy, and I became very enamored of eLit. I fell in love with eLit in 1991. I started buying them at that point, so buying from Mark Bernstein. And Nancy was dating Stuart Moulthrop, who had just published Victory Garden. It had been written up in the New York Times. He was getting he was like a lion, literary lion, he and Joyce and a few others. And anyway, he would come in to visit Nancy. He had just gotten a job at UT Austin, and I was at UT Dallas, and he would come in for the weekend to be with Nancy. And he'd walk into the graduate student office, and everybody would go, Stuart Moulthrop. And he would sit down in front of his computer that we'd have just for him, and he would work on his POMO. Remember, Rob, the POMO Culture online journal? It was an internet journal, not web, internet journal called POMO, Postmodern. And he was always on the Postmodern listserv and writing in the journal. And so he would just sit, and everybody would be like, oh, he's working, don't talk. He's thinking. So it was funny that he and I became good friends, collaborators through the years. And oh, Leon, oh, such a great question. Oh, so before there was the web,
Leon, are you serious? Before Dene answers, I have to say, are you serious? Anyway,
no, I think it's a
Dene,
great question. No, let me answer this.
my
Oh,
dear friend Leon, slaughter him.
No, this is such a great question. So Leon, the browser in 1994, Mosaic, and then 95, Netscape, made the web possible. The web had been around for a while, but it was not mainstreamed, and you couldn't really get to anything because you couldn't access anything. So the browser made it possible to get on the web. But before that, before 94, 95, actually 95 is when it's mainstreamed, because not many people could run Mosaic. From the 80s to the 95, we had to get online with our modem and go to the internet, right? So the internet, and the internet had many tools, one of which was mail, right? Another was kind of web, but you had to get to the web in a kind of weird way. And then there was gophers, and all these ways to go from server to server, right? Which is what the web does, right? Pulling things off pulling things off the server. And so these internet journals would be sitting on someone's server, all ASCII, right? Because we couldn't do images that were color, couldn't do sound, animation, all of that was just too much for our computers and the systems to manage. So with our modems, we get on to the internet and go into a gopher like Archie, Veronica, Jughead, and then go to a specific address. And the IP addresses at the time were not like domain names like denegrigo.com. It was like, 372.479. And so, long addresses. So we'd have to type in that as our IP address, TCP address, and then go to that gopher. Go through that server to that gopher. And then you pull up the journal. I've got images of these. I should just put them on in our channel. But yeah, and then you see this really cool like ASCII interface. It's the cyber journals at the time. I have some really cool cyberpunk journals that are like ASCII art, and then you could kind of click on something and they'll bring up another ASCII page with text, lots of text. I have so many of these in my collection. You need to come visit me. Just come visit me. I got lots of cool stuff. And it's always exciting to talk about it. Maybe we should do something, Frodo. We're talking about themes today, right? We're going to work out themes. So maybe one of the things we can talk about is some of these early textual experiences, net experiences.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Dene, do you want to write a list of themes?
I got it right here.
Okay.
I'm the secretary of the day. I'm the scribe.
Yeah,
So
that's perfect. Okay. Should we do a few things before that, or do you want to do themes next?
no, go ahead. Do some housekeeping and then we'll do this. But let's
Yeah.
not forget this.
So one piece of housekeeping is a letter that I'll be sending to the ACM because I met the ACM president, Yannis, first time face-to-face at the Royal Society. And for the paper I'm doing for ACM Hypertext, which isn't that big or long, there's been one section that's really bothered me, and that is the term metadata. It's a really bad term, right? And I go back to what really helped me with my thesis, which is the notion of electronic literature. The fact that your community exists, Dene, is really, really important because we lack a language for this. So in this letter that I've written, I'm just going to have Vint review it before I send it on. I'm saying that we should forget the fact that such a thing, hang on, because it's actually what you were talking about in many ways. I'm just going to open it back up for myself.
You got an empty page. On mine, when I bring this up, page 3 is blank. So you've got space there to get rid of.
Oh, okay. I just cleaned up something, so that obviously destroyed that. Anyway, thank you for that. This is not the final version, so that's very useful.
Can I recommend a couple of things? I would not start the third paragraph as unnecessarily vague and off-putting. I would say is vague and just say
Not very useful.
I wouldn't use anything negative because now you're making it sound like they're stupid, and you don't want to make Giannis feel like ACM is stupid. Just the term metadata.
They didn't invent the term metadata. I'm saying the term metadata isn't necessarily vague. How about and not very useful or not very descriptive or
not very descriptive? Yeah, just try to stay away from what would be considered negative language.
So, by the way, it's kind of interesting with the AIs out there. So I ran this through a prompt in Author to help me find errors. It really actually works. It's so much better than the Grammarly and all those things. Anyway, so the point of this is ignoring the term metadata, and let's just look at what the text contains. And then we have this entire paragraph is basically what we've been alluding to in this conversation, which is great. Even simple plain text is obviously to us encoded. Like the code behind the word text is 0111, etc. It's written there. So let's not pretend that there is the kind of text we're talking about for electronic literature is that different. Electronic literature is purely, in my mind, an acknowledgement of the potential of the fact that it has to be encoded. There is no plain text, doesn't exist on the computer, right? So that's
Can I make another suggestion? That next sentence is time to move beyond the digitally naive idea. That's another person reading that might get their feelings hurt. It's time to move beyond the concept that print is flat. I mean, you can quote Kate Hales, print is flat, code is deep. Print is not, she's
time to move beyond the perspective.
Huh?
Time to move beyond the perspective or idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just get rid of digital naive then.
Yeah, naive just sounds so accusatory and grumpy. No grumps.
Right. No, that's fine. Don't worry too much about the letter, and thank you. I've made those changes. But what I'm trying to show in this letter is that, as it says at the very end, an open interactive metaverse can only be built on open, reliable, and accessible metadata. And I've been playing a lot with different LLM type things recently. And one thing I've been doing in Reader is taking papers, even outside of our field, running it through a couple of prompts to generate the visual meta for these papers. And it works really, really well until it doesn't. So, unfortunately, Mark Anderson's not here, but he's the one who's really good at saying, hang on a second, this isn't correct. So that is, of course, a problem with AI-generated metadata. So that's why it's important to encode it to begin with. But the whole thing I just wanted to bring up here is we just need to think of text in this environment as having a lot more behind it. And one of my concerns about how the ACM Digital Library thinks about academic papers now is they want to move to XML. And obviously this is a public recording and everything, but to me, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, XML should be available for all documents, for all papers. There's no question on that. But XML is not a reading format, right? It's a data format. So if you want to have something readable, you have to open it up in a web browser. Hopefully it'll render well, or you have to have it exported to PDF or something. So the whole idea of XML solves everything, which is the current perspective, it seems like, just doesn't make any sense to me. You can't easily, with current software, have an XML library and reader and all of this good stuff. So that's
May I ask a question, Rhoda?
Yeah, of course.
So the last thing you have there on the page is an open and interactive metaverse can only be built on open, reliable, and accessible metadata. Somebody might ask, why? Why? Because
I think it is self-referential, because if the metadata, okay, hang on, you're being very kind. Okay, let me try to.
I just came out of a 4-day conference with a bunch of scholars and artists. My brain is focused. I woke up on a pinpoint this morning.
Okay,
That's a good claim. That's a claim. So because
it's the metadata which powers the metaverse.
But then that's a tautology. That doesn't work, because it's hard to recreate. It's hard to construct textual experiences consistently across different formats without it. I mean, what does it net us in the end? And we're going to be having to answer this question anyway with our grant, right? Because that's part of our grant is the metadata. So it'd be good to start thinking about how to answer that question now, because it does this and does this and does this. And that's why we're focused on it on our project. Because if somebody puts a headset on and looks at our environment that Andrew has built, and they're looking at it, here, we want to make sure that they can go across here and across here and across here and across here, that it's consistent, that it's true. I mean, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so far I've just.
What did you say in your dissertation? You must have written something in your dissertation about this.
Oh yeah, a lot of other things. Like what's here further up is a bit on the opportunities and the opportunity costs, which are significant. I think it's really important to take that into account. But I think one of the things we need to discuss in our themed meetings is first, we need a session on metadata. I think Mark would like to host that. But then we also really need to have at least, okay, Dene, how about this and everyone else? The future of text, to me, obviously is very aligned with the notion of electronic literature. Should we, for a while, have every 2 weeks really focus on electronic literature? Because there are so many aspects to that too.
What aspects of it, though? I could talk about eLit to the day I die. What aspects of eLit? Are you talking about like showing different kinds of works to show the different ways people have expressed text or express themselves in text? Are you talking about the kind of design thinking that goes behind it, the kind of tools and production that's needed, the kind of scholarship, the way scholarship has had to change? We can't talk about text anymore the way we used to 40 years ago.
I think we should exactly that, Dene, have subsections. Now, I got this book today, and I'm really annoyed Mark isn't here, so I can't rub it in his face because that's how he writes. And
I
so
love him. I love that author. I've read every book he's written.
oh, awesome. Yeah, so this book is about knowledge, which is, of course, the whole point here. And I'm thinking if we do eLit series, some of them should be about the work. Just talk about maybe 2 different authors or something. Some of them should be on how in the world is it produced and how is it different. And of course, I'd also like to have some sessions on how is it different from printed literature and how can we go beyond that. What do people feel about that?
Yeah, I think I'd have us read Kate Hale's Print is Flat, Code is Deep, for example. It's a short article, became very influential and sits at the heart of her book, Writing Machines, which is probably one of the most influential books that hit our field.
Sounds good.
I can just go on and on about this stuff. I just don't want to dominate.
No,
And
no.
Rob, your name was mentioned a zillion times. And know that yesterday when I was at the memorial for the event for Margie, I brought up the document, the planning doc that Margie led that had your name on it as redoing, re-upping, kind of fixing the ELO as it was moving forward when it hit UCLA with Kate. And you were on that planning doc. And you don't remember.
I'm shocked.
It was you and Dene and Margie and Matt Kirschenbaum, Alan Liu, some really nice big names in the field.
Yeah.
I
20
see.
years ago.
Oh, sorry. I was
Yeah,
just going to say, I see Peter saying, why not a human-friendly writable notation over XML? So forgive me for my ignorance, which is vast. Those of you of a more technical bent, if you receive an XML paper, what software would you use to read it? Not read it like HTML, seeing things in hard brackets and stuff, but to read the content. What would you do? Put it in a browser or what? Currently.
Well, I guess I would actually, because the browser has this like foldable, or if you're lucky, then the browser will show it in a sort of foldable way. But to be honest, I would try to run away because it's not fun to read XML. So I've never had no, I have never had the situation that an XML document was not for machines, but for humans. I've never had that situation. It's always communicating to machines, and sometimes you have to debug it, and then you might have to read it.
I'm just writing a note on that. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I might try opening it in Tinderbox or programmer's editor, which presumably would have support for selective disclosure of sub chunks so that I could collapse and expand them and do the folding and all to manage it. But it's ugly. The other alternative would be to write an XSLT transform to convert it into HTML and then look at the resulting HTML in the browser. I think some browsers have built-in style sheets that can handle displaying arbitrary XML documents. So if you're lucky to catch one of those, maybe 10 years ago or so, that was a thing, but I don't know whether it was maintained in future builds or whether that went away.
Yeah, so here's the thing. In my little letter to these guys, which is basically a bigger piece, shrink down, I'm just saying it's really important now that the documents, rather the papers we produce now, are readable by human, machine, AI, and XR. So we agree that those are important goals, right? And to do that, you probably need to make it really, really clear what it is. One thing that is nice about Visual Meta is AI already reads it. So if you just give one of these documents to any ML and ask for the metadata, it'll tell you. Because at the end of the document, it says this is this. And I think once we get to the right point in our Sloan work, we can start doing spatial information in there, as Andrew and Fabienne has been looking at briefly, quite literally. And there's no reason you can't put the entire XML in an appendix as well. The modern PDF renderings are really extractable if single column, and as long as ligatures are not used. And you wouldn't use ligatures in XML anyway, so it should be available there. But right, okay, so that was a big thing for that, and thank you all for your comments. Dene, what themes have we got so far? I'm going to see if I can find the ones we have in Slack as well, where you mentioned.
Well, I like the idea of the internet text. And so, Leon, I've got CyberRag in my collection, which is on one of the first journals that was released on a floppy disk. And so I can do some screenshots of that and show that. It's very cool. I also have, I'll look up to see if I can get I'll contact Stuart to see if I can get some old images of postmodern culture, because I think that would be an interesting one, because that was on green screen. I also have one of the first electronic journals ever published. And it was interesting because it came in a box and it had a combination of papers, a VHS tape, a floppy disk. So I can show how people tried really hard to do this kind of endeavor before there was a web. So I can kind of take us through that. And that one then would lead to, and I think we could probably read, I could probably give us some ELIT work to look at that's contemporary. So you can go from that to something really cool that we're doing now, to see just kind of jump over the evolution and go from there to here. And then back up and see and read print as flat, code as deep. And look at something like Lexia or Perplexia, which she references in that book, in that article. And then that would bring in some ELIT works along the way. We can talk about how we structured metadata in these early works, because it was not something on our radar screen. In fact, I didn't know what the hell metadata was until about, I don't know, 8 years ago. We never talked about metadata in my field. Yes.
Right now, at this point in time, Dene, what would you consider metadata to be?
Oh, for us in the lab, it's description. It's a description of the work, a deep description of the work, thick description of the work. And for us, it even includes disabilities. You know, what parts of your body you need to use in order to access a work, because this is not just visual that we're talking about. So it's thick description, to quote Clifford Geertz.
Would you consider the documents, if it is a document, the table of content, the reference section, the glossary, and so on, metadata?
No, it's paratext. It's paratextual.
I can agree that a glossary would be paratext, but really the table of contents, wouldn't that be... by the way, this is not me disagreeing with you. This is me trying to look at, I think the language we use, all of us, is a bit wrong, and we need to get to another level of this.
Yeah, when I think of metadata for print, but see, print, I don't think in terms of print anymore. I mean, I really don't pay much attention to metadata in print. Where my metadata thoughts have turned is electronic, because their table of contents cannot possibly capture. It may give us the name of the author and the title. Okay, so yeah, but it's thin. It's not very thick. It doesn't tell me, like when I go to a journal, I go to Taper, an online journal with electronic literature in it. It has a table of contents. It tells me the name of the work and the author. It may give me the date. But when it doesn't tell me that when I click on it, I'm going to automatically hear a sound. It doesn't tell me that I'm going to need to use my camera. It doesn't tell me that I'm going to, if it has blinking lights and it's going to freak me out. The things that I think are necessary to fully comprehend the work is missing. Hi, Brando. They're missing, right? Those items are missing. And so, yeah, so maybe the table of contents contains some metadata, but it's not the metadata that I would need to understand fully a work of electronic literature. And let me say this, the lab has reached its current state, not because I woke up one day and said, oh, we're going to do this. It was like baby steps all along the way. And where we got to the metadata schema that we devised, which is ELMS, was that we were trying really hard for the Mellon grant, because we had that Mellon Foundation grant, to describe these. We had like 700 works at the time, describe them for the spreadsheet that we had built, right? We hadn't even built a dashboard yet. So we had a spreadsheet, author's name, title, date, and we were using the Library of Congress's mods, the metadata schema for the library. And we realized that some of these people we were dealing with were 3D modelers, and there was no description in the mod system for these weird ELIT kind of activities. There was not even a description for 3D modeling, not even a term for it. And so we were like starting to add our own columns and our own, terms. And then we realized that we were augmenting mods significantly. So that's where ELMS was born. So it's extended electronic literature metadata using mods. And then once we did that, it's like, okay, so now we've got this great stuff, but I'm able-bodied. I don't get freaked out when things blink, but someone else may. So how do I tell them something that I don't necessarily need to know, but they need to know? So then we modded ELMS. Here's all the sensory modalities, and we're using Kate Hales as our model because she laid out the modalities for us. So I didn't make them up. I'm standing on her shoulders using her work. And so ELMS came out of a natural evolution of thinking about how electronic literature, electronic media, games, I mean, we're talking a whole, net art, electronic installations. I mean, all the things that we're dealing with might fit better than doubling core or mods allow us for. And so I presented on that. So just to get us back to the ELO conference, I gave 3 papers in a demo, and our demo was very successful. But one of the papers was about the project we're doing in the next and all of that. Immediate translation and all those things. But Andrew can talk about our demo if you want to hear about it. Anyway, so yeah, but Freda.
So thank you, Brandel. Soon we're going to go. Leon's going to do a presentation. Right now we're discussing something, and we're also working on getting themes for Mondays. So the Mondays will be, as they have started, no Sloan, other than the odd reference that's natural, but it's not about Sloan. And we're thinking making them more electronic literature oriented, because that's a more explicit way to say rich text rather than, the what future of text. So the discussion right now is on the notion of metadata. I hate the term, it turns out. I really, really despise it, even though I have an actual PhD now in metadata, right? So I'm allowed to say that now. It is just that, first of all, it is inherently meaningless to find definitions of metadata online. You will find lots of communities having their own. There's no real single definition, at least that I didn't find. Dene was now talking about what I would consider external or administrative metadata. On a work, you will say, we'll need camera to access this, that kind of thing. Very important, clearly a valuable piece. And then we were talking a little bit about what do we call the reference section or the table of contents? Is that data, metadata, paratext, all these words? And I met with some ACM folk, and I'm sending an email regarding the ACM digital library. And when I mention metadata, a lot of people in the industry think of expense of adding it. It's boring. It's a bit not relevant to them. So I'm trying to develop a language which basically, a bit like horseless carriage. Today we just have a car. We know what it is. You don't need a hook to say there's no horse in front of it. How do we describe a document that is got a lot of data behind it? We acknowledge that each word, each character, each letter is encoded somehow. It isn't like analog text. And like electronic literature does, acknowledge that in a positive way and builds on that. So one approach is, of course, the whole appendices, visual meta style. But my big point is that it needs to be accessible in whatever way. And to finalize my summary and frustration and ACM at the moment, ACM is very interested in XML, but XML is not a reading format. It is a data analysis format. So that's why Dene and I were going through now our different fields use of the term metadata, and I hope we can get rid of it. Yay. I've uploaded, I think after you joined, Brandel, also another version of the 3-page letter if you want to have a quick look. So Brandel, before we go to Leon's presentation, how are you?
Pretty good. I'm feeling fairly relieved at the political news over the weekend in this country. I feel like it puts us in a better state for being able to do things like meet climate goals, hopefully. I've been
keep our birth control pills available.
Many of the above. Yeah, I mean it's not all in hand, but it's at least something that upsets the apple cart in terms of what it seemed like we were going toward. So that's been mostly on my mind, but I have been thinking a lot about what it is the text is. At W3C TPAC, which I'm approved to go to in Anaheim in September, I'll be presenting, continuing to present model and I'll have proper support to be able to kind of get more into the details of exactly what it means. And part of the charge there is also to think about what it's for. So that's very exciting. And yeah, just being after sort of recovering from COVID to the extent that I'm bored in the evening, starting to try to look at what are the things that I think and what are the practical consequences. So excited to have a wide-reaching conversation here about those things and also what's happening today. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Rhoda, before we move to Leon, can we circle back for a second? Because I still want to work out like a schedule here. I also want to talk about our demo now that Brandel's here. It'd be good to talk about what Andrew and I did at the conference and the kind of feedback we got. So Andrew, did you want to say a few words about our experience there? What you thought, your perceptions?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it definitely went well. Some of you may have seen the recording that we did last week. So we essentially just played the video in the background so we didn't have to stream anything from the headset. And then Dene and I talked over the top. Periodically, Dene would pause the video when people had questions or we wanted to elaborate more on a specific topic we were going over. And yeah, it was well received. People had a lot of questions for us afterwards. Seemed like enthusiasm for the topic. Yeah, I mean it was a short presentation, but it was nice and streamlined.
It was 12 minutes long in a panel of several people. I had a lot of people write me afterwards, Stuart Multhert being one of them, saying that he was fascinated by this. And he said that he loved the idea. He said, first, you're doing something that no one else has thought about. And that's how to make text work. Text work. It's not a game. It's not an art environment. It's like text. And also, you're going beyond what the headsets have kind of given us for text. It's not in front of you. You can move it around. It could be behind you. It's not just right there in front of you. And like when I'm on the Quest and I'm playing Beat Saber, and I move my head around, the environment follows me like this, right? What we're doing is it's there, right? It's all around me. And so there are a lot of things that Stuart thought we were right on track with. He really liked the open environment. He thought that was very, very incredible. And I showed the picture of me sitting in front of my computers and stuff. And he said that picture was really hit home. He said, this is what we all want to get rid of. We want to get rid of all of that stuff and be somewhere where it's all in the headset, and so we're on the right track. So I thought that was good. And then I mentioned that a couple of people would be interesting to include in our future of text material meetings and things. Him being one of them. He can't come every Monday, but he could come some Mondays. That's why I want to get this schedule down, because I think there'll be some things that he could talk about and lead the discussion about. Also, David Henry Wright, who's visited the lab, works in Nagoya, Japan. Be good to have him talk about the work he's doing with XR and art. So there's a lot of connections that we made, but good response, I thought. Andrew was brilliant as always.
No surprise there. This does provide an opportunity for another really important thing. And Dene, after Leon presents in a few minutes, we're definitely not going to stop talking about themes. Today is about themes. So that's not at all what I intended that we're finished. But seeing you sitting in the room and pictures of that really, to me, highlights the importance of the data of the person. And I think, Brandel, this is talking to you as the choir like crazy. In XR, it's not enough to have a dark mode and a light mode, as some of us have talked about quite a bit, did these studies, finding out if people want this text or this text or that text. The curves are very, very smooth of what people want. So we have to find ways to really capture individual differences to the point where the notion of accessibility becomes useless, because there will be an entire spectrum between the different ways people use their limbs and all of these things. I think that's really important. So Dene, the stuff behind the electronic text, the world of the knowledge around it, and the person coming in, they have to be thought about together. Electronic text, if anything, is not isolated text. So thank you for letting me do that highlighting bit. Yeah, and Brandel, also on reflecting on Dene and Andrew's presentation, and Dene, by the way, you're the one who insisted on the grey room, and I think that's just genius. I don't think that was obvious at all. I was at Starbucks today. I had a really good work session. I had my headset with me. I didn't find a need for it. I really don't, other than trying to find a new app and doing demos for people. I find it, and Brandel, obviously, this is not a criticism of you. It's kind of exactly the opposite. It's kind of useless. It's nice to see these stereoscopic video and so on, but sitting at home with a 27-inch screen, with the current system, there's no benefit. So I'm so glad that we're all here together doing the Sloan work, because from everything I've seen, even things like soft space, the dimensions don't add anything. And Brandel, if you hadn't entered this community when you did, we'd probably be thinking about this just starting now. So the fact that it's a bit useless as is now, isn't that just the most amazing experience for us? I think it's incredible.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the idea of metadata, and what is metadata now has receded a lot from what would have been sort of metadata versus the core data at the time when the reproduction of manuscripts was that much more expensive. We didn't have page numbers. We didn't have people didn't even have titles. There was just the classical name of the author. So there were very, very few embellishments that were there for finding devices. A table of contents is very much metadata in an old model of something. So it's just a stack of, or some volume of pure body text is the text in that sense. And so that would be considered wildly inadequate by most people's standards today to constitute a book or a text in any general sense. And the reason for that is because we have more strong opinions about what a book or any other kind of text is actually for. And we have the expectation that at some level we want to be able to seek. And so we need to have it separated, and we need to have it in page numbers, and those pages in pages, and those pages should be numbered, and there probably should be titles. There should be descriptions. And so I think it's the opinions for use that dictate what constitutes the barrier between sort of table stakes text or the bare minimum meta text and the things that are sort of above and beyond. It's a transient boundary that shifts as we expand the scope of what we understand to be the necessary terms of usage. And yeah, I'm glad that you see how important it is and how exciting that it is that I brought the problem to you. No false modesty there. I was really excited to find everybody here and sort of plant the seed of VR, because it's so far away in terms of people understanding that, again, like where VR future of text, or where embodied or immersive text goes, is to do again with use. It's what are the modalities of computing that we believe need to be inserted into the medium for the benefit of reading and writing, because no one else is going to do it. And it's for that very reason that it isn't that much use to be lugging around a Vision Pro to a cafe right now. And those are decades, if not centuries, problems. Those problems have been solved in decades, if not centuries, in the past. And we have a chance to do it faster, but it's not immediate and overnight. And techno solutionists who believe that those things are going to just land in our laps either have not been paying attention to history, which is true, or they're just giving us vastly too much credit. So yeah, it is a long problem, and I don't think that that's sort of throwing up our hands and saying, "Oh, don't expect Vision Pro to be useful right now." It's more that reading is such an innate part of human cultural practice that we need to be able to think deeply and give it the time that it needs in order to find out what it wants to be. But the very first step, the step that we've taken for the last couple of years here, of very, very earnestly looking at it and saying, now we know what text can be, what some dimensions of it can expand into. What would its shape be if it was able to comfortably relax into that medium is an incredibly potent one.
Yeah, absolutely. And my closing words before I open up to anyone else, or Leon, if you're ready, is surprisingly, I think one of the great innovations in the last few years technically has been the M1 chip on the Macintosh computers, simply because you don't need to carry a charger anymore. That is phenomenal. You know, you leave the house all day, whatever you need to do. You're no longer literally tethered. And it's such a non-direct benefit. It's more like a sales pitch, but it turns out to have a real use benefits. And there was one more thing. Oh, yeah. And that is the importance of testing. The fact that we now have Andrew's work, we can test these things. That, you know, it is so much more useful for me to be in our Sloan environment than it is to be sitting on top of a volcano while working with text. Logically, I could maybe guess at that before, but until we could try it, we just don't know. And that's phenomenal. So we just have to keep going. Yeah, Dene, that was a lot of waffle for me. Please go.
I just totally lost what I was going to say. It happens.
You probably just wanted to say you agreed with everything I was saying.
Oh, everything you ever said in your life, I agree with, Rhoda.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God. No, but yeah, okay, it'll come to me in a bit.
So, yeah, Leon, how about we switch to what you have done with what we are?
All right. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my video and I'm gonna share my screen. Where's the button? That's
Middle.
interesting. I don't have a share my screen button.
What?
Uh,
Rhoda, do you need to make him
Yeah, I'm
co-host or
looking at
something?
it. I'm looking. All participants can share, should be possible.
is it
You don't
maybe
have
my screen size, which,
make your screen bigger.
yeah, I'm making it
It might be
bigger.
hiding.
I'm pressing the more button. Nah, this is super weird. That is weird. It's recording. That's interesting. The button is not here. Let me turn on my video. Maybe that helps.
That might help. And it's hard to share without video. Just saying.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I'm afraid the button is not here. I have, yeah. If I read up like mute, stop video, participants, chat, reactions, AI companion, and more, and it's not in more. So
You want to do you want to re-log in maybe, Leon? See if we get lucky.
yeah. Let's try that.
Okay. So while Leon is gone, oh, it's only part gone. Okay, maybe that's the issue.
While we're waiting, I'm going today with for the senior seminar. We're picking up an interactive installation for the fall semester's project. Very cool. It's for a library. It's a beautiful installation of language hanging from the ceiling of the library, and we're going to turn it into a sound and kind of interactive installation for as a game for an iPad. So very exciting.
Very
So
cool.
doing a field trip up there to check it out and start the spec sheet on it. So the students are going to be building something really fun this fall.
That's cool. By the way, to everyone, particularly Dene, I'm using more and more the language of academic papers needs to become electronic literature.
Well, it's funny that I use from now on, I mean, for the last, I don't know, 3 years, I've been saying born digital because everybody gets all weird about electronic literature. They think it's like, I don't know, an iBook. It's like, no, we're not talking about this. We're talking about this. So we're using born digital literature, art, and games.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's what we're doing, and I'm not going to change that.
No. I'm not saying you should change that at all. I'm just not sure if it fits with what I'm doing. Anyway,
Yeah.
Leon, you want to try again?
I would like to, but for some reason
You want to send us the doc? You want to send us your stuff and let us show
I can
it
also
and talk about it?
drop some links in there. So I basically started to.
Do you want me to screen share, Leon, since it is inside our website?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. I'm gonna copy paste the link. So last time Grendel inspired me with telescopic text, and I thought it was, it would last for one day, but actually like the whole week, I was actually refactoring websites into making them telescopic. And so you can basically click on some underlined blue words, Frode. For example, Brandel. Those ones. So if you click it, it basically expands, and it allows me to write a very dense text. And then if you click, for example, Frode, I was waiting for Frode, or if you click on these keywords, it basically expands into a still readable sentence, but it's basically giving you more details. And I really love this for several reasons. It's still copy pastable, which is not the case with simple highlights or notifications. Secondly, it allows me to write a highly technical text for laymen, for people who are not technical. And I can basically leave the expanded sentences to the technical people who want to know more about some term. And I really love this. I have created some open source style sheet only version of this telescopic text. If you can click on code pen, do you see that? If you click on code, Frode? Yeah. So I was playing with some variations of it. You can try it, Frode. So yeah, this is the one it's basically highlighting the sentence which is being expanded. Here I created some lines. This is the current one I'm using actually. And the one below is, if you click on these bold words, Frode, on in the bottom, yeah, then you can see it's basically doing line breaks as well. I didn't really, it wasn't really super useful, but it was just for the sake of experimenting. And I really like this. Like I always have, as a developer, I have always struggled with trying to write a text which is exciting for technical people, but also normal people who are not technical. Normal people, as if technical people are abnormal. But anyway, so super excited about this. So I wanted to share this. If you can go back to the Future of Text blog, the basically, yeah, that one. So I basically I have an account on this blog, which is a WordPress blog managed by Frode. And I was thinking of like, how cool would it be if I could sort of have more exposure instead of only this blog, because I'm usually consuming my news in the Fediverse. And so I asked Frode, can you maybe install the activity pub for WordPress? I read that if you just install it, then automatically every author gets a, yeah, that one. Every author gets a ActivityPub address, and also the blog itself gets an ActivityPub address, news@futuretextlab.info. And what you can see is that I don't know if this link will work, but if you go to Mastodon, which is basically a Twitter alternative, let me quickly post the link here. I've posted a link in the chat, Frode, with the. Do you see the chat somewhere?
Yeah, you can see. Oops. You can see this, right? Mastodon loading.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Network error.
Well, I haven't used Mastodon for a while. We used to have a Mastodon server, which I had to give up on because it was too expensive. But I'm just wondering if that's interfering with me being able to see anything. No post found. Okay, that may very well be just me then.
How much was it costing you, just out of curiosity?
I think it was $300 a month as an
Yeah,
extra component on
it's
the
spendy.
server. It's ridiculous.
So the beautiful thing about this plugin is that you don't have to set up a Mastodon anymore. You just install the ActivityPub plugin on your WordPress, and then you're basically a social platform yourself. So could you click the link in the chat, Frode?
The Mastodon one again.
Yeah, just open it in the browser.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. It keeps getting a bit excited. Okay, I've got it. Okay, I thought I could control click.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought it was some kind of app.
You're leaving Mastodon online. If you trust this, fine. So it goes to the main page now.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit sad that I cannot share my screen. But basically, I saw my my post, this Future of Text Lab post. I saw it popping up in my feed, and I could follow myself. I could follow the website with all the articles, basically. So I could choose between following only the author or following, every article published on futureoftextlab.org, or I think. And the cool thing is that I started to comment on Mastodon on this article. I said, hey, this is cool. And then my comment also appeared here below. This is what I wanted to demo, but because of this lack of screen sharing, I have to tell you that it works. But you can basically, people on Mastodon or other Fediverse websites, they can just comment on this article without having to go to the website. And when you're on this website, this web article, you can comment back, and those comments will also appear back on these other platforms. So it's basically full circle, and everybody can comment anywhere on everything, basically. So this is a bit of an upgrade compared to, if you comment on a Twitter post about a blog article, then that comment will not show up at the blog article comment section. And so this used to be very disconnected, but with this ActivityPub, you only have to have an account somewhere once. So either you have a WordPress account or a Mastodon account. Everybody can now talk to each other, and yes.
So in a way, it's like an RSS feed plus.
Exactly. It's more like it's an RSS where people don't have to know what RSS is. They just basically sign up somewhere at some site, and they're part of the club, basically.
I'm just going to try something here. I'm going to post this PDF on here and publish. Now, do you have access to this? I mean, through your other Mastodon and so on, can that show up for you?
I will make a screenshot then. Let me have a look. I don't know how fast it will replicate. Which author are you actually?
I'll give you the link to the article so you can see how it's specified in there. Okay. Oh, it doesn't give my name there. I'm Frode Hegland, but let me just see what that means in terms of how it's written. Just Frode, Frode, that's it.
Okay, Frode at Frode at futuretextlab.info.
It would be really, really nice to have a proper WordPress-like community that's distributed.
So I see your profile now, actually with Edgar on it. So let me see if I can post it in the chat. Oh, it doesn't do a copy paste in the, okay. I was expecting too much of Zoom. I thought I could just copy paste the, but it might take a bit of time before it, but it's already seeing your profile. So I just added the what I see right now.
I think this is very interesting, and it really shows up what pretty much all sci-fi misses, and that is there's going to be a lot of competing standards and so on. You know, if you look at the future, it's like they go on the network. No, they have to log into Mastodon so their WordPress account can be verified through their Twitter feed, which is now called X. You know, all that stuff. So this is exciting, Leon. So you're seeing this in Mastodon.
Yeah, I'm seeing your profile. I see basically the website. I can go to the website. It's basically if I search on you. So, but I don't see the post yet. So I think maybe this is.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Maybe it's in draft mode, or you have. I don't exactly know what.
Leon, you're ready to make a piece of art.
So
time for you to start making some electronic literature now.
Exactly. So let's go back to your first thing today, Leon, which was the telescopic text, which is often, many names, stretch text, and so on. I think it's very exciting. The way that I've implemented it in Author is defined concepts, which is not exactly the same thing. But the point is to have this kind of ability in different media is very, very interesting. Some of it you pre-populate with, Brandel Zuckernook is so and so. Other things you want to do on the fly as you're writing. The authoring mechanism that you have now, is it basically the HTML where it is highlighted as something? Do we want to go back on that, or do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, so to be honest, first Brendel showed me a website which is sort of an interface, a specialized interface to do that pretty easily. I think the website was telescopictext.org.
Yeah, he used to have .org and .com, and one of them is dead, but the other one still lives on.
Yeah. So like I would consider that to be the easiest way, but I was tempted. I was thinking it would be so cool that I could bring telescopic text to all my websites, and therefore I fiddled some style sheet together so that I would have a portable version of it. And the trade-off there is that I have to write the HTML in a certain style to make the folding work. But I don't know if you, I don't know, it's a bit hard for me to determine if an average person with a little bit of HTML knowledge would find that acceptable or not. I don't really know, but there is a bit of input friction there for let's say normal people. And I was even thinking, has there been anybody who came up with a markup for that? Because we have markup to create an anchor link, but yeah, it could be just a small adjustment to the anchor link to have it sort of like unfold instead of being a real jump link.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it would be amazing if it could work in PDF somehow without having lots of underlines or textual color things.
Yeah. In terms of a markup, I mean, you could just decide that any tabbing in a document represents parentheticals that can be displayed or not. And you could have, go ahead, Frode.
No. Please finish. I can remember this.
Or you could indicate with a sigil whether something is sort of displayed or not. So you could have some special thing for a telescopic parenthetical, because that's what they are. And I think the point you make about the reason why I was so interested in telescopic text at the time as well is because of the way that it represents a fractional intent toward something like a jump link, and the idea that you can make these smaller elections that may be harder for people to sort of philosophically commit to simply by expanding something, then they can kind of edge towards an idea or a way of viewing a specific document that kind of has the ability to let the document transpose itself into the more appropriate thing until such time as it needs to be sort of yielded to another place. Dene?
Artists have been using it for different strategies, right? So side thoughts, hidden concept, hidden ideas, all kinds of ways to create textual experiences, right? To tell a story. It's a narrative strategy, so it comes in handy. I've seen it used. Nick Montfort used it beautifully for kind of expanding ideas. The one I showed last week, I think it was last week, was rewriting. Not saying what you really were thinking, hiding your thoughts. So there's all these different cool narrative strategies that it allows for. But I think what I think is useful for us is that people don't like to read a wall of text. My students, if I give them a page of text and there's not a broken up, the chunking of text with images and things, they don't want to read it. But if I give them something like a telescopic text, an expanding text, where there's like 5 things on the screen, and then they click on that, and then expands, and then it expands a little bit more, a little bit more. So then it's their choice to create the wall. So I think from a reading standpoint, I know what I was going to say, Brandon. That brings me to what my response was that I forgot. Is that reading? I've read a lot about reading, right, and becoming a teacher, because my first master's is in education, curriculum and instruction, and in that degree plan, the basic stance was reading was not a natural state. Reading text is not a natural state. It's something we have to teach ourselves to do. I know as a child, my mother would give me a book. I have pictures of me reading a book upside down. I'm laying in the bed reading, and I've got my storybook upside down, and I'm reading, and I'm thinking I'm reading the story, but I'm not really reading the words. I'm reading the pictures, or I may be reading the story that my mother told me once, but I'm not on the right page because I don't understand the concept of pages yet and text on pages. And so that whole concept of reading is something we teach ourselves. And J. David Bolter argues in Writing Space that reading trained our brain to think a certain way, to see the world a specific way. And that when we change that, the way we read, it's going to change our brains. I mean, that's what Writing Space is all about. And I totally agree with him on this. That he wrote that something like 34 years ago. And I've seen it happen, right? We've all seen, and those of us who teach know that our students, the way they think today about text is totally different than the way I thought about it. That begs the question, is this a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Is it just different? And what is that going to net us in the end? Yeah, and thank you, Rob, for that. I love The Wasteland. And Tristram Shandy's another one that I think was very useful to refer back to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how's that gonna change the way we function every day? And the argument that someone like Swin Burkett uses is that, the world was built, the great buildings of the universe were built because people could read text. My counter argument to that is that we built pyramids without novels. So I don't agree with him, but I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It is different. It's very different. And then going through the ELO conference, just to reference that again, so much of our efforts now are going towards games and gaming environments. So electronic literature is being swarmed by the game world. Not a judgment on that, but it's certainly the truth. When I asked people in the room, there were like 50 new people at the conference, like, okay, so how did you get here? Games. It wasn't like, oh, I love Ezra Pound. It had nothing to do with literature as we have come to know it. So anyway.
Yeah, so
I'm
many.
going to stop here. I got a phone call.
So many important aspects. I just wanted to share for a moment, thinking about the authoring side of this, and that is, you can all see the screen, right? So in Reader, as is quite normal, you can insert an endnote like this. So when that is rendered to a PDF, starting with that real quick, and someone comes across that text, where is it now? There's a little number up here, you click on it and you get this pop-up. So that pop-up is what was in that. Now, we haven't really worked on the HTML export for a while, and it may even crash. And I'm wondering, Leon, if this could be a way to author so that we do something like an endnote for the user. I can't even find it on here. And if they then, when it's rendered to the system you are talking about, it is exported as a component of telescopic text. That might be an approach. The problem with this approach is probably that you can't easily nest them, and it seems like nesting is a very important idea, but maybe it could. I don't know. Just a thought. Leon, please.
So yeah, that's very interesting. I would even be interested that maybe there's even a loophole in the PDF format which allows hiding showing things and can be sort of used or abused. But what I also think is really important about what Dene said is the people, don't want to read long text. This seems to be a with the sort of the explosion of content and basically, companies fighting for attention, text has to be shorter, more to the point. There is almost an incredible dislike for being off topic. This is very interesting. I have a feeling that the more you go back in time, the more people had time to sort of ramble about not related stuff, which is also very useful because it sort of like creates new connections. But I think this telescopic text, this is a bold statement coming up, probably I'm wrong about this, but I think it allows to sort of restore the balance between the sort of fast thinking society where everything is being pushed towards, and it sort of restores it back into sort of like also be able to think slowly while still having the small text in front of you. If you don't have time, you just read the text, the short version. You have time and you're curious, then you can sort of like investigate whatever you want to investigate. So I'm really amazed the more I thought about it that this is not a part of let's say the micro blogging platforms like Mastodon or Twitter. So it's a really, I find it very interesting.
Yeah, I agree that there is a change in the number of parentheticals that seem to be sort of permissible within a body of writing, and that there are sort of all kinds of benefits from people being able to take those side streets, but also to be able to signal those side streets so that people have ways of reading that sort of support things. My wife pointed me to this neat post by academic Casey Boyle at UT Austin, talking about the ethics of reading and the way that the only ethics of reading that most people are taught is the sort of monolithic completionism of being a small child and being rewarded or praised for reading something in its entirety and not going into the reading with much reading for novel reading, rather than sort of scanning or opportunistic selection of things. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about what is an acceptable payload of meta information and the level of instrumentation that's permissible. Most people know that it's weird to read a dictionary cover to cover, and people make jokes about it. But that a dictionary is a very specialized tool in that it's layered in with all of these modes and mechanisms for being able to kind of support opportunistic reading, as is an encyclopedia, but it's sort of further along that continuum. But that if we can equip people again at a cultural anthropological level with a base ethics of a different mode of reading, then we can create a different kind of text and expect people also to be able to recognize it. Like starting with a markup, starting with a couple of sort of clear examples of it would be a really great way to begin that process, kind of developing syntactical mechanisms, things like that. And to your point, I think, Leon, about there being a representational sort of challenge with regard to how to do these things. It's the web, as we've seen time and time again, is a vehicle that people can make recommendations for and revise and add in the same way that nested CSS was a product of Sass and less. And now it's in the native specification. TC39 has picked up all kinds of things that people were doing for syntactic sugar, but syntactic sugar is also a great way of describing meta information. So, the HTML specification can be expanded and revised. And, if we find there's a good enough sort of presentation of something like parenthetic, telescopic, or stretch text that could do with a terse representation within the HTML specification. I know how to fix those now. So I think that there's a lot that can be done. You're muted there, Frodo.
Frode, you're muted.
Found it. Found the mute button. Okay. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you. I'm very interested in collapsing and expanding. I see it from a different perspective. Table of contents are necessary, but it's also shockingly useless in most cases. So that's why I've been working on the notion of what I call structure text. So this is for authoring, not necessarily publishing. So some of you have seen some of this, but let's imagine I highlight this and then I do mark as structural. So if I now go into an outline, and it should be automatically this version, there are different versions. It will show these things per section. Let's do that again. Like this, right? So it is a mechanism for assigning what I believe helps me as the author remember what is on the different pages. And I found that while I'm using it now, it's useful for highlighting on page because this makes it really skimmable. Not as much as when it's folded, right? So what you're doing with that implementation for the user, I think is very, very interesting. I think we should have more conversations of how should the author be able to say what that is. It might even come down to being something as simple as this. Anything in brackets, right? When you export, it could be just that. So then the word descriptive would become actionable. But an issue with that is, having played with the design very much, if you see it close up, that if we show it with double brackets, it's actually kind of ugly and loud. So the question is, how do you make it clear that the word descriptive is actionable without making it stand out in a different way that you would want to? For instance, here, I want what the text contains. I want that to be standing out, to be read. For something to stand out because it's interactive is a very different thing. Leon, did you have a comment on this? I think your hand went up for a second.
Yeah, so first I thought I had a comment, then I wasn't sure about it, but maybe it's still worth. I was thinking about implicit versus explicit metadata, and I wasn't really sure in which category this belongs, because yeah, is the power of this idea that the viewer decides what is important and what is not important. You start to reason from a perspective I didn't really consider yet, like the author wants specific parts to be read at all costs. I didn't really thought about that yet. I was more thinking about compressing as much as possible. But yeah, these are definitely good points. I also, yeah, I don't have a good comment about it, but these are things I just started to think about.
So we should definitely experiment with this in the community in different ways. One thing we could do, like after Sloan Foundation, you see I put a vertical line. That may be enough to indicate to the reader to click. But before we go, oh, Dene, did you have something quick on this? Sorry.
Yeah, just a comment you made, Leon, that I think is a good one, is that it's not so much the reader decides what's important, but it's all there. I mean, it's all there. So they can read what they want when they want to. So like when I read the New York Times in the morning, if I don't have much time, I go through it very quickly, and then I go back later in the day when I have time to read the articles that I missed, right? So it's a way of reading that allows you to go back to things and get to it really easily, right? Just tap and it expands. So it reveals what you want it to reveal at the moment that you want it. So it's a good idea.
So I just wanted to show it rendered. Sloan Foundation vertical line. It's not too big. And, depending on whether it's an HTML type text, it could do exactly what you have, or it can do something similar to a pop-up. But something I would really beg to hear some feedback of from the community is something I've been looking into, which is batch processing our papers with AI to extract useful stuff. It's not as straightforward as I thought. So the idea is this is set up in Reader as kind of a hidden command. It's not for everybody. It's basically for us. So first of all, in the settings, the user will be able to edit 2 prompts because they're very different things I think we should extract. And my question to you is, what should we experiment to extract? The first prompt is something like keywords and stats. What keywords are listed in the paper? Find keywords from the whole paper, not just the keyword section. What products, people, technology, and so on. What is the reading level? How many words? And so on. So if I now, I'll just open up a recent, this little test document, I can do it right now. I have it, keywords and stats. So it's GPT 4.0. It's not super fast. It's quite good. Right, so these are the names mentioned. So my question to you in the community is that useful? And then a second question, so you can answer it both together, is more of a academic AI analysis, which is much more sketchy, to put it that way. So I'm going to run that, and then I'm done with running the 2. So this is just on that rough text. So on the first one, it's who wrote the paper, and it knows who I am, which is quite nice. It looks at the conclusion in the paper. It looks at the summary. It asks the characteristics. What kind of paper is it? Technology paper? Are there any logical errors, any factual errors that could find? Do you have any criticism? What is the sentiment of the authors? All of that stuff. So my question to all of you, and I'm just going to take a screenshot and then upload it so we don't have to have this video running. Do you think such things might be useful? And if so, what should it be? The thought is, of course, that once we, of course, Dene, you're absolutely right, I'm sorry. And this, what I'm talking about now, can very much continue in Slack as well. But the question is, in Andrew's world, what, if any, of these extractable entities might be useful when we have a big space to work on? That's really the key. We've had the discussion in general, and now I just want to see what the feeling is. Because what I've got so far is stats and stuff and keywords, and the other one is more analysis. Any feelings on this? Are there any things that should be extracted, or anything that you think we should definitely not extract? Because I'm going to try to actually build this so that it will be there in the JSON for Andrew to use if it fits what he's already doing. Andrew, this is not more work for you. This is looking at the JSON process of metadata. But I don't want to start doing extractions that people don't find are useful or comfortable with. Dene, what kind of extractions might you want from a batch of academic papers? No, you're muted.
I'll have to think about it. I can't think about it right now, but I will give it some thought.
Thank you. And we'll continue this just a few more minutes, and then we'll go back to the themes. Brandel.
So one thing that I would, I'm not, it's not abundantly clear to me in this form what I would necessarily do with it. But one thing that does jump out at me is that while it's a text transposition, it's changing one kind of text into another text. At some level, that's not that much more readable to me. It's not like, it's still just another wall of text. So something that I would love to see is scannable, things that are iconified or visualized in terms of attributes and characteristics. So if you have reading level, being able to have a scannable kind of graphical representation of those dimensions. If you have things like sentiment analysis, being able to actually turn those into dials or scannable instruments that have the ability to be read without needing to actually engage, the visual word form area to be able to look at what the black text on white background is doing. In general, that's the thing that I look for is the most is like, at what level of attentiveness am I obliged to regard this body with in order to be able to extract meaningful information, and the use of color, the use of type scales, the use of graphical representations, including graphs, but other shapes and form. Those are the things that I think really help pull those things out. And so, to the extent that GPT and other things have the ability to be able to make that jump from text into pictures, but not pictures of a T-Rex riding a rocket, the better.
I completely agree, and this is the hope, exactly that. The initial question is, what stuff should be extracted to be visualized? Absolutely agree with that. I mean, I think we should have a longer discussion on this in the future. So actually, Dene, to start the theme discussion, I think it would be really, really useful to have extracting stuff from papers to visualized themed discussion. To bring those things together. What you're saying here, Brandel, you're absolutely right. It's just columns of text, as they are not useful very much at all.
But wouldn't that fall in line with our project?
Yes.
The theme meetings are supposed to be more just general that anybody can pop into, because I'd like to start inviting people, and I
Yes.
don't want to talk about our project on Mondays when we're talking about our project.
Oh, no, but for this, I'm not, the implementation in Sloan, it could be applicable to, but Andrew's not going to build that now. I think it is very, very topical and correct to talk about how can AI extract or analyze documents in order to provide visualized solutions, whether it's on a flat screen or other. I think that's really key to the future of text, because one of the problems text has, it's not very visual, which is ironic. So what are the things inside a paper that should be taken out and viewable? Obviously, I think one of them might be the reference section. That could be very visualized. But I want to do this, my personal experiments to feel this stuff in concert with what you guys think is useful to extract and what isn't. I mean, even though we're not going to talk about Sloan stuff here on Mondays, just as a thought experiment, proceedings from any kind of conference coming up, what are the things people would like, us people and the wider group people would like to see extracted from that and visualized? I
have about 12 minutes left before I need to go to my own lab meeting, right? The LM. So can we devote at least 10 minutes of it to talk about like lining up the rest of these topics and getting a date on these? I believe we are talking about that. I am suggesting that one of the topics should be what elements should be extracted from AI to be viewed visually. Down. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So, okay. Can we start from the beginning though? Let's start where we left off, like 35 minutes ago, and get this kind of lined up because I want to get dates to these so that I can start putting together a schedule and inviting people and looking for speakers, right? I mean, that's the point of this, and 10 minutes is not going to be a long time, but I'm going to go as fast as I can. Okay. All right, everybody. Right now we have 6 ideas on paper. Internet text, what that looks like. That comes from Leon's question about what was the internet look like? What do you mean internet? And so we're going to look at that. I've got some ideas what to do with that. I'm looking at metadata in general, like, what is metadata? Why, why is it, what's the point of it? What are we doing with it? What can people do with it? But we also want to look at eLit Works. So some examples of how we went from internet text to where we are currently, which is pretty avant-garde. In fact, the whole conference was super avant-garde stuff, hardly anything that was what I would say traditional literary work. I'd like to talk about the notion of print not being flat, kind of taking on Kate Hell's idea that when she argues that it is. I'd like to show some VR art. I think doing some and having someone talk about their art would be great. One of the artists that I know. Extracting data for AI. Know that the electronic literature art that I saw these last 4 days was a lot of AI. In fact, the winners of the Coover Award were AI art. So the notion of straight literary work, I mean, a lot of generative stuff, hardly anything straight narrative, straight poetry. And even the discussion about how to teach electronic literature to people in parts of the country, parts of the world that don't have access to technology was still, here's a document. There's a document that emulates generative text. Now fill in the blanks. It's like, oh, can we think of something else? So it's very much focused on that right now. So those are 6 ideas. We're talking about every other week. Is that correct?
No, no. Well, you're talking within ELO perspective now.
No, I'm talking about scheduling. How often do you want to do this?
I was
Is it
thinking we
every
would
week?
put it. I was thinking we'd put a theme on every meeting for a while,
Okay.
and then roughly half of them ELO focused and half more maybe technical or whatever else we do on here.
Okay, so if we start with the internet text, that would be next Monday. That'll be 7/29. I'd like to then move into the ELIT works, and that would be 8/5. And maybe after that, we could do print as flat, kind of get into that idea of moving towards
Maybe,
through text.
yeah. Have you seen the comments in the text here on some suggestions as well? Maybe intersperse them a little bit.
Okay,
Because
say
one
them.
because one of the things is come up every once in a while is analog and digital reading combined. What does it mean when you read in both medium, and how do they connect, kind of? I don't know.
And
What
just
kind of themes do you guys want going forward?
that's 7. That's good. We have lots of weeks.
I'm I'm really interested in chapter videos and the sort of the rise of being able to provide structure and punctuation. So WWDC videos have sections that are sort of identified in minutes, and YouTube also now has a progress bar that is actually visually separated with an automatically extracted title based on some set of heuristics. I haven't because I know they're heuristics because they're on mine, and I sure as hell didn't supply them. And so yeah, like I'm really interested in that sort of mixed text and what the material expectations are for
Will you
them.
lead that one, Brandel? Would you take responsibility for that one? Showing us the examples you're talking about. And I mean, you don't have to do a lot of homework. Just pull some examples and lead that discussion.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, there's some ACM West presentations last year that sort of reach into some potential futures on it as well that I can cite.
Okay. And then analog and digital reading. Who came up with that idea, Rhoda?
Speaking what?
You said analog and digital reading. Who wrote that one in the chat? I don't have the
Oh,
chat open now.
I wrote those in.
So you do that one. You lead that one. So you give us things to look at and discuss it. Lead the discussion.
Yeah,
That's not my area of expertise, so I can't do it.
no,
Someone
no,
else.
I'm also thinking about how I think definitely we need to have speakers to kick off discussions for some of these. I'm just wondering how led they should be. Okay,
Did you want to invite somebody? Can you invite somebody that be in charge of inviting someone for that one?
well, that one would be Alan Laidlaw, but he's not really here these days. Though hopefully he's watching this and may send me an email. But okay, why don't we? Okay, so Brandel, are you leading the one with chapter video text?
Yeah,
Okay.
can do that.
We also need at some point to have one on reading in XR just to get everyone talking about it and kind of ignoring what we've done. Maybe Rob, you lead that one. Yeah.
Reading in XR.
Yeah. What might that be? And just you don't have to do a long presentation or anything. It's just, kicking people into commenting. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I hope it becomes better than it is now.
That's a good start. But one thing that I would like to do, Dini, would be the last two combined, which is active text, what that could be, thinking and communicating with active text, very much related to what Leon has showed today. Actually, Leon, maybe we split that, you and me. We have one on, maybe I talk about authoring with active text, and you talk about reading with active text. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic because I noticed that writing active text, as you said, is it's a bit of a different paradigm almost of concerning writing.
Okay. Andrew, is there anything you would like to host? Just to give you more work. No. Is there anything you think might be fun to host?
Honestly, I'm just sort of buckle down and work on the programming. So I'd prefer not to host a discussion. But
I don't want his
if
time
you want
taken
to put
away
that
from
on my
production.
table, I'll come up with something.
No. Only if it might be fun for you. That's absolutely totally fine. Obviously. Dini, I think we should put down Mark for metadata. I'm not sure what he means specifically, but he has shown interest in talking about that.
That sounds great.
So how many themes have we got now? If we got 2 months, that should be good, right?
Yeah, let's go back. I mean, I have starting next week, and then we have ELIT Works on the 5th of August. The 12th is Prentice Flat Code is Deep. And I think from there we can jump into, in fact, we can combine that with Mark's metadata.
Okay.
And
Could
that's
you,
the 12th.
once you have it written digitally, can you please put it in Slack so we can comment on it?
Yeah, I'd like to continue though working this out to make sure I've got it all. So, and then we have
Yeah.
VR art. Are you
When we have got it. Yeah. No rush.
So did you want to do VR art, or have I showed you enough of it before?
I think that will be hugely valuable.
Okay, we can do that maybe on the 12th. No, that would be the 19th. Then we have analog and digital reading, Froda, finding somebody that might be interested in talking about that. Know that school starts for me on the 19th. Things start getting really gnarly. And I am teaching on Mondays. I teach the XR course. So that's going to be a long, hard day. It's like 3 hours of teaching nonstop. So 26. Punctuating videos, would that be, and could you do that maybe Leon on the 2nd of September?
But which one did you say?
Punctuating videos, the notion of videos having its own,
That
that'd be
Brandel.
Brandel. That'd be Brandel, yeah, Brandel. Reading and XR. How about authoring and active? That would be take us to back here. Yeah, the 9th. We're going to be at the ACM conference, so we probably ought to skip the 9th. I will be, and you will be traveling, Frodo.
Wait, 9th of what?
September.
Oh, you're in September already?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, okay. Let's not do further than the ACM conference. Let's just do from now till then.
All right, I'll write this up and get this in our Slack channel for us, and I'll do that sometimes this afternoon when I get back from my field trip.
Right, very good. And then once we agree, I'll just email it to the whole community, the whole Future Text community, and Dini, you will email it to your, well, distribute it to the ELO community, right? Good. And of course, don't feel shy, the rest of you, about sharing it. So that was good. So Dini and Andrew, you have to go to campus now, right?
I'm going to be here. I'm going to meet here and then going to campus afterwards. I'm going to drive to campus. I'm taking a bunch of people up to Woodland for a field trip to the library there to do a spec. We're specking out the project.
Sounds good. Well, while we're just having a bit of a lull, what kind of things, guys, and please post on Slack if you want to, should I experiment with extraction from papers?
I don't know what that means right now because I need to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's totally
And
cool.
I know we're doing a lot with AI, and I think that's great. But at the same time, I really don't want AI reading for me.
No, no, that's exactly
I
the
want to
balance.
extract my own data.
No, but Dini, you have really hit the nail on the head as far as my thinking is concerned. Where will it augment us and where will it do it for us? I most certainly don't want it to read for us. But things like word count, I think might be very useful because then in a list of proceedings at some point, maybe we show them with different thicknesses depending how big they are. You know, that gives us a
That's
visceral idea of what they are, that kind of stuff.
right. That's testing beyond breaking point. That the terminology of what constitutes AI. You don't use AI for word count. But
You
yes,
don't?
what kind of computational interventions can you make on text? Yeah, I mean that's my jam. I don't read academic papers very much, but I like to know where things are and what characters are in them. So to the extent that there are transposable attributes like that, when a piece of text is in reference to. So these are things that are present in narrative texts a lot of the time. A thing is in a time and a place with some people, but you know, and it might be pulling on those concepts somewhat to be able to get them into the relative relevant sort of attributes within an academic text. But I think that looking at things like that uh, is interesting, and being able to kind of come up with, again, visual representations of each of those things. So, you know, something that I haven't done, but I really mean to, is go through Alice in Wonderland and sort of annotate each paragraph to indicate the presence or absence of all of the individual characters, so we can tell where the dormouse is and where the queen is and things like that. But yeah,
When I talk about I do not mean it as something fancy. I generally mean it as something a human assistant could do. So you can do regex and all of those fancy things. You can do all kinds of basic coding things for you who are coders. But it is kind of amazing for me, who was not a coder, to just put in a query in Reader, run it on the document, I get a result. The fact that, so I wouldn't preclude things that could be done really simply. And the example you gave, Brandel, is absolutely perfect. You know, go through, find the things that have these things and situate them and so on. Those are the kinds of things I think we should look at. Leon, please.
Yes. So disclaimer: I'm not a academic, so I'm just making up things here. But what I could imagine is that, you know, if the academic world is so specialized in all kinds of different things, and the overlap between these things are perhaps not directly visible, and it might require very smart people who are perhaps a polymath, or but it requires a special type of people to see sort of overlaps, or perhaps seemingly overlaps but which are not really overlaps, basically not making category mistake. But it might be a first nice attempt in sort of detecting certain perhaps connections or overlaps, which it might be even silly or childish and completely wrong, but it might be a first, some kind of first level skimming through all the text and see if some papers are perhaps connected, which maybe not by annotations, but by just like the contents of it, and maybe that could indicate perhaps a lack of citations. I'm just making up stuff, but maybe that's why it could help, perhaps.
Yes, and with the kind of thing Brandel talked about earlier, what I really want to do is look at, I don't know what the right vocabulary is because it's so up in the air these days, but categories, keywords, or topics. Analyze a certain corpus of papers. Are they technical papers, historical, humanities, with a little bit of training, and then have the system come back with what the system believes it is. So when you then open up a new set of proceedings, you get that on the side that some of these papers are more on the humanities side, some are more technical. because users, as we know, are crap at doing their own keywords. Well, we are. I'm one of them. And then have that in a space where you can kind of see them moving into your literal, I think you said islands, Randall, like an island over here representing this or something. We can start doing that kind of topic mapping. That's one thing we can do, but the opportunity here is really quite vast. So to me, it's just AI can help us get interactable knowledge out. I'm reading what you wrote here, Rob. Yes, a good example, good point. Leon. Leon, you are on mute.
Yeah. The moment I said what I said, I also realized what Brandel said. It's very easy to sort of like get carried away by, doing things in batch with AI, while perhaps, a lot of things can also be done without any AI, just, simple for loops and extracting keywords and making some kind of table out of that. So yeah, I guess it's good to remember what Brandel said before we actually do some experiments with it.
You see, the thing is, it really depends what skills one has. I don't have the skills to do that. So even though it's simpler for you and more basic, it's out of bounds for me. I can't do something in Reader to make it do that. So that's why AI, I think of it as a very generalized system, or MLs or whatever, where I can say, just tell me how many words are there, or how many occurrences of the word Brandel, for instance. It's simple, but if it helps me do a visualization later, it's useful. The thing that Mark Anderson has really warned against many times is AI doing too much analysis, or as Dene would have said, reading and thinking for us. We have to be careful if we do that, and I think we should definitely experiment with that too. It should be crystal clear that here is an AI analysis, take it or leave it. We really don't know, but here are the more factual extractions which may help you do your own thinking. It's like an interesting gamut. And it
Yeah,
could,
I take that point that what constitutes AI and the boundary there, and maybe is dependent on the level of technical acumen that somebody has, and so that somebody who doesn't have the wherewithal to write for loops would call a word count AI.
no,
I
that's
would
not what I
like
meant. Use the AI for the word count. Anyway, go on.
Right, but yeah, but yeah, it's more to do with the mechanism through which the word count is obtained than necessarily the specific things that the system has the ability to lean on in order to find them. I'm interested, Rob, in what you're saying about the books. One of the things that a physical book has is the random access to be able to see the totality of all of those little tags. Like, have you ever succeeded in doing that to a digital text in order to be able to in order to be able to have that same interrogation of it? Probably not, right? Like,
Oh, I want it.
yeah, me too. I mean, that's one of the very central sort of tenets of what I think we're missing is being able to have these ad hoc mechanisms of being able to reestablish a terrible words. Just reestablish a dialogue with the text and a mechanism of investigation into it, because your first reading is one where you're laying those things down. You might have a specific mode of reading in order to be able to do that, and then you get a second reading where you can put those pieces together. You can kind of fold space, Frank Herbert style, between those places that are most interesting, and kind of provoke yourself into having different thoughts as a consequence of juxtaposing them more directly. But we don't have that with a Kindle or with any kind of hypertextual document, because we don't have the right to be able to kind of see it at that level,
We have a little bit.
without having a much bigger system to kind of intervene on it.
We have a little bit of that. So in Reader now, because Dene went through a few weeks ago on different levels of the kind of annotations. So we now have the ability to annotate important, quotable, great, disagree, problematic, what is this, all these things. And the point of that is that when you then without selecting, if you do view important, it'll show you all the things you have highlighted, annotated as important. If you do all annotations or just A, it shows you all of them. Currently not in color to show which ones they are, but it is the beginning of trying to solve Rob's issue digitally of going through a huge document, doing specific annotations, and then being able to jump to them later. So we're playing with it at least.
That would be very useful. If I were really more motivated, I would use different colored tags to identify different selections in the book text that I wanted to go back to and assign them various categories. But I use the tabs that are handy, so I don't pay any attention to the color, but it would be very useful to be able to tag them.
In Reader, we're going through a basic, you can do it by color if you go to settings, but it is, if something is interesting, you select that text, you do the character I, and you're there. So it goes by that. It is, Dene is the single user so far in terms of what the language should be. And yes, I see the time also.
I know it was Heather sending a message to me. Yeah, there was an interesting. I had an interesting conversation with Andy Matushik a while ago about post-its and about using sort of little photo printers, little thermal printer kind of things, as ways of being able to print out small but very sort of at a glance legible emoji and other sort of symbols, and being able to build sort of a single tap kind of interface on a smartphone to be able to get just a printed SF symbol, like just an icon symbol, isotype kind of thing. But you could do the same for I don't know if you've seen there are little ribbon printers and micro banner printers. You'd be able to create short things that that have some visual indication. Yeah, exactly like that. And if you have those, then and you don't mind sticking them into your book, then that would be a pretty useful. Have you played with that before, Rob? Printing
No.
labels with that for books?
No.
It's a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, I mean that's clumsy. It takes time, and frankly, this has tape in it that doesn't peel off the easily.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to with digital text is that the willingness to be really sort of conceptually, philosophically destructive to it that we don't have mostly the stomach to with paper books right now.
Yeah, I don't even like to write in paper books.
I love to write in paper books.
Yeah, lots of people do.
That's how they become mine.
And I have interesting books that other people have written in, so I agree, but I'm reluctant to do it. It's just I grew up with a reverence for books, so
completely understand that. And we're 5 past and I have to run to the family. Thank you for today. Also, please feel free on Slack when Dene posts the themes to comment on them, suggest new, etc. And I look forward to continuing this. Have a wonderful time until hopefully see you on Wednesday. Bye, everyone.